Good afternoon to all. So in this particular class, we'll start with the module 5. So the module 5, this particular topic consists of which are the cloud platforms which they are going to use in your industry. Okay. So when you talk about which course objective this particular module is going to cover. So this particular module is going to cover the whatever the explanations or comprehend the cloud platforms which will be used in industry, and for that particular application, whatever the application you are supposed to use for the given applications, what type of appropriate code model for a given application can be used, that one. Okay, which particular code model we are going to use, that one, whether we can use the infrastructure as a service, or whether we can use the platform as a service, or whether we can use the software as a service. According to the chapter, so the chapter 9 is going to discuss mainly about your only infrastructure as a service and your platform as a service, so which are available in the market. Okay, so next comes the overview of this particular chapter, how it is organized. So when you are going with the overview of this particular module, or this particular chapter 9, so we are going to have the Amazon Web Services. First, we are going to discuss about the Amazon Web Services. So we are going to have the different services which is provided by Amazon. So the different services which are provided by the Amazon are compute service, storage service, communication service, and additional service which you are going to have. So the next, you are going to have the Google App Engine. So if I start discussing about your this Amazon Web Services, so the Amazon Web Services is going to mainly provide what? So this is nothing but your infrastructure as a service. So these services where the Amazon is going to provide is about IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service it is going to provide. So the next is Google App Engine. So even if you take the storage, so the storage will come under infrastructure as a service. If you take the communication, how the communication will be done. So because when you talk about the compute service, so it requires the processor, right? So it requires the processor. And when you talk about the storage, it requires the hard disk and all. Okay, so it requires hard disk. When you are going to have the communication service, you require the network. So and some of the additional services it's going to make use of. Okay, so this we are going to discuss in your Amazon Web Services. So basically Amazon is going to provide different types of services. So next is Google App Engine. So in the Google App Engine, what are the different architecture and core concepts which are involved in there, and what is a life cycle of the application which you are going to have. So depending upon the life cycle, what will be the cost model of that particular application which you are going to deploy, and we are going to discuss about the observations which you are going to have in this particular topic. Okay, so the third is Microsoft Azure. So in the Microsoft Azure is also one of the platform as a service which they are going to provide, so from Microsoft. So basically it is based in this particular topic we are going to discuss about what are the core concepts of your Azure, and what do you mean by SQL Azure. So what is the service it is going to provide, so what type of service the SQL Azure is going to provide. So next we are going to discuss about Windows Azure Platform Appliance. So that means we are going to develop the platform. So for that particular platform, what are the necessary requirements which we are going to have. Okay, so that we are going to discuss. Once we are discussing all those things, we are going to make the observations. Necessary observations will be done and we're going to compute that whether that particular service can be accessed by it or not. Okay, so next, first we will start with the Amazon Web Services. So as the name indicates, Amazon Web Services. Who is going to provide this particular type of services? Your Amazon company is going to provide that particular company. So now, what it is going to provide? So in this particular services, basically it is going to provide you the development of flexible applications. So it's going to provide you the development of the flexible applications by providing what? By providing the elastic infrastructure. So elastic infrastructure is nothing but what? So as and when the requirement changes, because if I want running some program is what, my computing speed should be more. So when your computing speed should be more, I have to attach one more core or processor to that particular existing system. So I have to increase the speed. So elasticity will be there. So when you are going to tell about the elasticity, what do you mean by elasticity? So it is nothing but what? I am running a program in my computing system. So that means if I am attaching one more system to that particular existing system, so the user should not come to know that the another system has attached that one. Without the knowledge of the user, that particular configuration will be changed. That is what the elastic infrastructure you are going to have, and scalability. So elastic infrastructure, scalability you are going to have. So the next is your messaging. So messaging you are going to have. So in this particular messaging, so you are going to exchange the data, and with the help of the uh, existing services which are there, and we are going to make that one. So then you are going to, Amazon is going to provide the, when you are going to do the messaging, you are going to have the communication comes into the picture, right? So when you are discussing about the messaging, your communication will come into the picture. So here you are going to have the messaging. So here the type of the service it is going to use is communication. Okay. So next, when it discussing about the data storage. So when you talk about the data storage, in the storage, as the service which it is going to have is your storage services, which it is going to provide you. So now, so how these particular services are accessed is the next question. Okay. So how these particular services are accessed. So basically it will be accessed through two different web-based service interfaces. So what are these two web interfaces which you are going to have? One is your SOAP, other is your REST. So I think all of you have gone through the SOAP, I think, and REST. So your SOAP stands for what? Simple Object Access Protocol. So this I think you have gone through in our web technology. So simple object access protocol. Other is REST. So RESTful. So RESTful stands for representational state transfer interfaces. Now coming to the SOAP, what do you mean by SOAP? As the name indicates, simple object access protocol. So SOAP is nothing but what? It's a messaging protocol specification. For what purpose it is been used? It is mainly used for exchanging the structured information in the implementation of web services. So SOAP mainly involves the structured implementation. Okay, structured information in the implementation of web services. That means whatever the data you are going to send, or you are going to analyze, or if you want to access the data, so that your SOAP is going to have the structured data. So your SOAP is going to represent with respect to the structured data. So if we talk about the SOAP, we are going to have the structured data. Okay, so you're going to have the structured data. Now once the structured data is going to have, so how it is going to be referred, so you can see it here. So first it will be having, it is like a postcard. Okay, so it is like a postcard which you're going to have. So when you're going to have the deployed with respect to the SOAP, so first it will be envelope. Okay, so the first will be envelope will be there in the interface, that particular protocol. So next you're going to have the header. Okay, so that is going to have the header. So after having the header, the environment has to be created. So your environment, what you're going to have is nothing but the body. So the environment or the data which you need to transfer, or the structured information which you want to transfer, is in form of, it represented as body. Okay, so that's what it's going to have in your SOAP. So when you're formally, so if I say if you're going to have the simple object process protocol. So what it is going to make use of is the next question. So basically it is going to make use of your XML, that is extended markup language. Okay, so it is going to make use of XML information set for its message format. So if you want to send the message format, it's going to make use of the XML message format it's going to make use of. Okay, that you should know. So these things you should know when you start working with respect to your Amazon Web Services. So then, and mainly in which protocol it is going to work. So mainly when you are going to have the web services will run on the top layer, right? So when you are discussing in the top layer, so mainly whatever the access you are going to have, that will be relying on the application layer protocol. So now here, whenever you are going to have the access of our simple object reference, whenever the web service comes into the picture, so the web services we are going to make use using your hypertext transfer protocol. So when you are talking about the hypertext transfer protocol, in which layer it will appear? So it will appear in application layer. So okay, so it will appear in application layer. So this particular protocol is of application layer. Application layer. Okay, so now next, when you are going to have this particular type of layer, so then some of the legacy systems are there. So some of the old system that we are going to call it as legacy system. So when we are using this, when we don't have this particular technologies, so when you don't have this particular technology, how they were using? So in the legacy system, they were making use of simple mail transfer protocol. They were making use of the simple mail transfer protocol, which you are going to have. So now, when you are going to have the simple mail protocol, so by making use of simple mail transfer protocol, so they were using this one for message negotiation and transmission. So now, how the SOP is going to work with respect to that one? So if you take, so just I am going to give the brief. That's it. So if you take about the SOP, that is simple object access protocol. So it allows clients to invoke web services. So here the SOP is going to allow you the clients to invoke the web services. Okay, the client has to initiate the web services and receive responses independent of language and platform. Okay, so that particular client services it is going to take, and it has to receive the response and receives response independent of the language and platform. So this is what the basics of your simple object access protocol. So the next comes the REST. So this is important when you're dealing with your cloud services, that is representational state transfer. So these are the two different web services which you're going to have. So what it provides, what your REST is going to provide is the next question. So if we talk about the REST, so next it is nothing but what? It is an architectural style for providing the, so it is nothing but the architectural style for providing the standards. So for providing the standards, you should have the, for providing standards, it's making use of the architectural style. Now, when you are going to use this one, so when you are going to have the different standards, when you want to exchange the information between the two computer system, which you are using in your web. So if you're making use of the web, what will happen? So if you are making use of the web, so communication becomes easier. So if you use the web, communication becomes easier. Communication is easier. You are going to have. Okay. So you're going to make use of easier way of communication. So next, so whatever the implementation you are going to have, so it is now called as stateless in your stateless transfer also it is going to call it as. So you're going to have your RESTful. So that implementation is also called as stateless. So why it is called as stateless? Since you're going to, whenever you are going to have the exchange of information, you're going to have two things in your mind. One is your server, other is your client. One is the server, other is the client. So when you have both client and the server, so whatever the implementation of the client and the implementation of the server, so they are done independently here. So in your REST, okay, so they are done. So the stateless, the independently. That's why it is called as stateless. So even what is happening in the server side, your client will be not knowing, and what is happening at the server side, client side, your server will be not knowing. So now, For example, if server is running, if my client has to change the code, so now what will happen if already the client is making a communication with the server, right? So then what I need to do, if there is a normal procedure, I have to stop sending the information or exchanging making the communication with the server, and I have to do the changes in my code. But it is not the case in your RESTful. So in the RESTful, what will happen? Whatever the code you are going to change at client at any time, so that won't affect the operation of the server. Okay. So the code which you are going to have, so the code which you are going to have, so code change that server. Okay, code changed at server, so that will be not knowing, that won't affect the operation of client. That won't affect the operation of client here. Okay, so the same, it is vice versa. So whatever the code you are going to change at the client side, that won't affect the operation of the server side. That won't affect the operation on the server side. So this is just a brief overview of your SOAP and REST, how it is going to work. Okay, this I think you have been read in your uh, web interface, web subject. Okay, so the next is whatever the services you are going to access through the web. Okay, so whatever the services you are going to access through the web, it will be computed, or it will be billed as pay as you go basis. That means depending upon how much usage you are going to use, so for that particular usage you are going to be billed. Okay, so that's what it means. The expenses, what it is going to be computed on a pay as you go basis in your Amazon Web Services. So now next comes, when it comes to the Amazon Web Services here, so when you are going to have this particular part, so here, 1 minute. Hello? Hello? Research security in mobile cloud computing. Security in mobile cloud computing. Okay, so now here what will happen? So these are some of the services which is provided by the Amazon. So these are some of the services which is provided by the Amazon. So here Amazon. So what are the different services it is going to provide? One is your computing service it is going to provide. Other is your storage service it is going to provide. Other is communication service it is going to provide. And some of the additional services it is going to provide. Okay. So now next comes the question, under computing services, what are the different services it is going to provide? Okay. So under compute services, what are the different services it is going to provide? So under computer services, your Amazon is going to provide you Amazon Elastic Cloud. Okay, so this is one service which is going to be provided. Amazon Elastic Cloud is one service it is going to provide in your under compute service. So then Amazon Elastic MapReduce is another service it is going to provide. So Amazon Elastic Beanstalk is another service it is going to provide. Amazon Cloud Formation, Amazon Web Services Cloud Formation is going to provide. So next is auto scaling it is going to provide. So these basic services, these are some of the services which is be provided under compute services. So that means wherever you have to do the computation, so whenever you are going to have the computation, we can utilize the services which will be provided by the Amazon under this category. Okay, so normally we are going to make use of EC2. So and MapReduce. So if you're comfortable with using your EC2 and MapReduce, that's enough for you to fetch a job in the market. Okay, so the next is storage services. The different storage services, what it is going to provide. So you can see it here under storage services. It's going to provide you the Amazon Simple Storage service. Okay, it is going to provide you the Amazon Simple Storage. So next, it is going to provide you the Amazon Elastic Block Store, EBS. It stands for EBS. EBS stands for Amazon Elastic Block Store. So next, Amazon Elastic Cache. So Elastic Cache it is going to provide. So elastic cache, that means depending upon the requirement, the size of the cache will get increased. So next is Amazon Simple DB. So it is simple database. So Amazon Simple DB, DB stands for database, which you are going to have. So the next is Amazon Relational Database Services. So that is RDS. So whenever you are going to come across RDS, it is Relational Database Services, it is going to have. So whatever the data you are going to store, so that particular data will be stored in terms of relations that you have been known, that you people know that what do you mean by relational database. So the next type of service which is going to provide is Amazon CloudFront. Okay, so the next type of service which is going to provide is Amazon CloudFront. So next, in that particular storage category, it is going to provide you the Amazon import or export. Okay, so apart from this, so you are going to provide you the communication services. So apart from the compute and storage services, your Amazon is going to provide you the communication services. So here under communication services, the different services which is going to provide is, first one is Amazon Simple Queue service. Okay, it's going to have the simple queue, and in that one it's going to provide some of the service. We will discuss further. So how that particular service will be provided. So and we will see that one. So the next is a simple notification service which is going to use. So this is basically make use of the Amazon Elastic Block Store. Okay, so that it is going to make use of Amazon Elastic Block Store with the help of the Amazon Elastic Block Store. So this particular type of notification service, or it is like a messaging. Okay, notification it is going to do. So it is nothing but your simple messaging service which you are going to have. So okay, messaging service it is going to provide. So similarly, it is going to provide the email service, simple email services. Your Amazon is going to provide simple email services. So it is also going to provide you the Amazon Route 53. Okay, so next it is going to provide you the Amazon Virtual Cloud. Amazon Direct Connect is going to provide Amazon Elastic Load Balancing it is going to provide. So this will be the most important one when it comes to the communication services, how to balance your load. Okay, so just I am telling which are important and which one you have to concentrate more when it go to the real time. Okay, so my suggestion is you go in real time with what you are going to fetch, what for you people, which one will fetch you a job. So that when you read it and that one you go through it. Okay, so and then if you go with Amazon services, different services which are going to have the additional services, when you talk about the additional services here, so you can have this particular additional services, right? So when you talk about the additional services, it's going to have Amazon Gold Cloud. Okay, so government cloud you are going to have. So it is going to have Amazon Cloud Watch will be there. So which will watch the cloud, and it is going to give what is happening inside the cloud and what type of information has to be sent, what type of information has to be received. So those things will be taken care by that particular services. So Amazon flexible payment service is there. So where it is when you are paying something, right? So as a user, I want to pay some amount to Airtel, for example, I'm telling. So now it has to use some servers, right? So that particular payment service from where to where it has to be given. So you at that time you can make use of this particular service, because the person who has to receive the money, he will make a tie-up with the cloud service provider. Like for example, it is Amazon Web Services payment service. He is going to attach with that one. So when you are tying up with that particular vendor or that particular service provider, so what will happen whenever you want to pay some amount through credit card, so it is going to go to that particular service and it will check with that particular vendor, and it is you are going to detect it in safer manner. So to provide the security, they are going to make use of the flexible payment service which will be provided by your Amazon. So next is device pay. You're going to have Amazon device pay. You're going to have. So next is Amazon fulfillment web services. You're going to have. Next, Amazon Mechanical Turk is there. Alexa Web Information Service you're going to have. So all of you know what do you mean by Alexa already. So this is nothing but the store where most of the whenever you're going to have with respect to IoT. So this is with respect to the IoT concept which you're going to have. So it's going to provide you the web information services. What are the different services you can have through the web? Okay. So the next another important service whichever cloud is going to provide is your Alexa top sites. So this is some of the services that your Amazon is going to provide. So let us see, discuss one by one. What are these services all about? So when it comes to the Amazon Web Services, so rest we are going to discuss with respect to the cloud compute services. So your compute, when it comes to the compute services, what it is going to be provided is through EC2. Okay. So where is your EC2 stand for? Elastic Compute Cloud. So our EC2 stand for Elastic Compute Cloud. Okay, so that's what the abbreviation for your EC2. So or it will be called as someone, it sometimes is also called as EC square. So EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. So now what this is, so since I already explained by deploying the instances there, how we are going to deploy the instances through Amazon Web Services. So this particular type of service is basically the fundamental element of cloud computing system. Okay, so it's going to be a fundamental element of cloud computing system. So next, whenever you are going to have the Amazon EC2, so that basically what it is going to provide, that is it's going to provide you the infrastructure as a service. So that is going to provide you the infrastructure as a service solution, which you are going to have. So now, whenever you are using the Amazon EC2, so what it allows, so the Amazon EC2, if it is using, that is going to be deploying servers in the form of virtual machine. So this you have seen. So you are going to have the servers. So that servers will be deployed in terms of virtual machine. Okay. So the servers will be deployed in terms of virtual machine in your Amazon EC2. So similarly, so whatever the images you are going to create, so whatever the images or instances which you are going to have, so those images will be pre-installed operating system and the software stack. So already we have seen that how it is pre-installed the operating system. So before creating the instances, you are going to have to select what type of operating system you require. First, we need to select the type of operating system we require. So we select the type of operating system we require, and we will start creating the instances depending upon the type of the operating system, or we are going to create the image depending upon the type of the operating system which require, and that particular image which you are going to create, so the image which you are going to create will be having its own software stack. Okay, so it will be having its own software stack. So the next, when you start discussing about what do you mean by image is the next question. So what do you mean by Amazon machine images? So that stands for AMI. So your Amazon machine images is referred as AMI in normal terminologies. In your internet is a simplified version of Amazon machine image. So these are nothing but what? These are nothing but the templates. Okay, so you're going to have the templates. So but from that particular template, you are going to create a virtual machine. So with the help of that particular template, you are going to create the virtual machine. So where this particular Amazon machine image is going to be stored, so it is going to be stored in your S3. So Amazon S3 is the place where it is going to be stored. So what is S3? S3 is nothing but your simple storage service. So this is the place where that particular templates will be stored. So this particular templates will be stored in your S3. That is simple storage service. Okay. So your Amazon machine image is going to be stored in that particular place. So now, what this particular AMI consists of? That is Amazon machine image consists of. Basically, if you take the Amazon machine images, so your Amazon machine images contains the physical system, file system. So if you take any operating system, right? So if you take your operating system, if operating system has to be installed, it requires port. So it requires file system, it requires memory management, it requires process management, it requires, right, like IO management also it requires. So these are some of the managements where your operating system requires to run. So either it may be an image or it may be the full version of your operating system. But if you want to work with respect to the operating system, what you require, you should have some file system. So what this particular AMI, that is Amazon machine image, consists of, your machine image contains what? It basically contains the physical file system. Okay, basically contains the physical file system layout with predefined operating system installed. So that we have already seen. Okay, so if you want, I will show in the next class also how to create that particular images and how to deploy or how to execute that particular virtual machine there. Okay, so that we can discuss them. So that I will show as a case study in the future. Okay. So already I have shown it. So the same thing I am going to show it once again. So you are going to have the predefined operating system installed. Okay. So that will be installed as what? That will be installed in the form of Amazon RAM disk image. So that will be installed in that form of Amazon RAM disk image, or it may be installed in the form of Amazon kernel image. So one, it is going to be installed in terms of RAM disk image. Another, it may be installed in that form of the kernel image. So each image which you are going to have, that will be having a IID. So your Amazon RAM disk image is referred as ARI. So your Amazon kernel image is referred as AKI. So that is referred as ARI, and it is referred as AKI, and it will be having the ID. So that normally when you want to have some things to be installed, so it will be having the ID. So that particular ID is going to be given by ARI. Why? So it is not the same as this one. In this particular format, that particular IMA will be located. Okay, so that is six values will be there. Okay, for that particular image ID. So the next, when it comes to the computing services, EC2. So what this EC2 tells about? What do you mean by EC2 instances? So as I told you that EC2 is nothing but the elastic compute cloud. So what it represents? Basically, it represents the virtual machine. So we know what do you mean by virtual machine is nothing but. So your virtual machine is nothing but what? It's the abstraction of your operating system. That's it. So if you are abstraction of the image which system or compute which you are going to have. Okay. So that is that will be having its own space, and that will be having its own computes. So that will be there. Okay. So now here, when your EC2 instances is going to represent the virtual machines here, as I told you that. So since it is representing the virtual machine. So now when you are going to have the virtual machine or the system or compute system, so it should have some processing speed, right? So it should have some processing speed. So processing speed or processing power. So it also referred as processing power. So how it will be expressed? So how this particular processing power is expressed? This particular processing power will be expressed in terms of virtual cores. Okay, the processor power of your EC2 or virtual machine, it will be expressed in terms of virtual cores, and it is going to have a number of cores. Okay, it does not have the one single core, so it can have the multiple core also. So if it can have no single core is there, so it will be having multiple core also. So if we're going to have one virtual machine, so it can have multiple core. So that will be physical machine which you are going to have here at top. So these are how it will be expressed. So the processing power here, it is going to be expressed in terms of virtual cores, and your elastic compute cloud, whichever you are going to have, so that is going to be utilized or created in terms of compute units. Okay, so how many instances, how many types of instances you are going to have? So if you take your number of instances, so categories you are going to tell, or it can be also called as the types of instances which you are going to have. So type of instances is nothing but what? So your instances is nothing but your virtual machine which you are going to have. Okay, so it is nothing but your virtual machine. So when you talk about the different types of virtual machines which you are going to have, or different types of instances, or different types of categories of instances which you are going to have. So you're going to have standard instances. The standard instances are there, and micro instances are there. High memory instances are there. iCPU instances are there. Cluster compute instances are there. Cluster GPU instances are there. So here, so when you are talking about your cluster is nothing but what? A group of computer. Okay. So whereas your GPU is used, GPU cluster is going to use where you are going to have the graphical processing unit. Wherever you require more amount of graphics is involved. So like in your gaming, or in your where you are going to have the real-time streaming of any information is there, like video, real-time video streaming should be streaming will be there, right? So when you are going to have the real-time streaming, so there you require the high compute instances should be there. So when you are going to have the more operation has to be done, so the more amount of operation has to be done, so then we are going to have the high amount of instance, high amount of CPU instances should be there. Okay, so at these places, at this with where that requires upon the application which you want to run. So you are going to access that particular instances depending upon the type of the application which you need to deploy on that particular virtual machine. Okay. So basically there are 6 different instances. What are they? They are standard instances, micro instances, high memory instances, high CPU instances, cluster compute instances, cluster GPU instances. Okay. So next, when it comes to the service, so what it is going to provide when you talk about the service. So and whatever the virtual environment you are going to create it. So you are going to have the EC2. So there you are going to create the virtual instances. So how your virtual environment is going to be created, and what are the different, what are the services it is going to provide. So now whatever the EC2 environment you are going to have, so basically what it does is, so it basically gives the service to host my application. So if I want to host some application, if I want to run some application on that particular system, so I have one application like CRM or ERP is there, right? So when you're going to have CRM or ERP, so the customer relationship management application will be there. Some application, so customer relationship management, customer relationship management. So ERP stands for enterprise resource planning. Okay, so enterprise resource planning we are going to have. So this, what it is going to provide, so this is going to basically provide them with a service they require to host the application. Okay, so these are the applications. So if you want to deploy that particular application, you require the instances. So that if you want to deploy that particular instances, first I need to create the environment, how I need to deploy that particular application under what environment. Okay, so what are the things it require? So if the application has to be accessed from one place to another place, it should be what you require. It should have some network address, IP address should be there. So for that one, so there will be having this particular EC2 will be having in charge of allocating the addresses. So this particular EC2 environment, when you are going to have, it will be having some allocating address, and we have to attach some storage volumes for that particular EC2. So when you are accessing the application through net, so obviously what it requires some IP address, because if I want to communicate through internet means what, IP address will definitely come into the picture. And I have to configure my whatever the application I'm going to deploy, that should have some secure one. So it should have some security in terms of access control. So next comes, what do you mean by access control? So if you take about the access control, all of you know that. So it is nothing but that security technique. So what it is going to provide? So it is going to regulate who can view or who can utilize your resources. So access control, as the name indicates, access control. So access control is nothing but what? It's nothing but your security technique. So what it does, it is going to provide service only for specific people or specific person who have requested for that particular resource to be accessed. So now, so that particular access control is granted to that particular person who has to access the resources of the system. So for that one, you should have the network connectivity. So now whatever the instances you are going to create, or whatever the virtual machines you are going to create, so that will be having the internal IP address. So it will be having some internal IP address. So it will be having an IP address, which makes capable of, when you're going to have the IP address, what comes into the picture? Your communication comes into the picture, which is capable of communicating within the EC2 network. So within that particular EC2 network, you are going to communicate it and accessing the internet as clients. So then you're going to have that particular techniques, it is going to access the internet as clients. So now, whatever the instance owners are there, so when you are going to have the instance owners, that will be having the partial control where to deploy instances. Okay, so instead they will have the final control over the security of the instances. So what final control means? What deep finer control you are going to have over the security. Okay, so for security, with respect to security, it is going to have the final control. So when it comes to the instance owners, it can be having the partial control where to deploy instances. Okay, so now when you are going to have the EC2, so even the EC2 which you are going to deploy, so that will be deployed under web services. So as a part of the web services, it will be deployed. So if you are going to deploy with respect to the web services, these instances will also be given as a domain name. Okay, that you should know. So when you are accessing any EC2 or virtual machine, so if you are using your virtual machine through browser, so through browser, if you are using it, first things which will come into mind is, if you are virtual machine through browser, what it requires? It requires the domain name. It requires domain name should be there. So how the domain name will be there? The domain name will be in the form of EC2 xxx followed by your computex Amazon AWS.com. So that is what the domain name will be in the form of. Okay, so that's how it will be done. So that we will stop here now. So anybody having any doubt till here?